I'm about to show you guys how I created this Fulani hairstyle with bangs and Bantu knot boho. I'm starting off with parting ear to ear. I am simply separating the back from the front. The back will have knotless braids and the top will have the cornrow or feed ends, whatever you like to call it, stitch braids at the top. I will worry about that later once I get done parting ear to ear. You want to make sure that it is as straight and as even as possible. When I say even, as far as both sides, about the same amount is left out from the top. Now that I've separated both ends and got the part all neat, I am now going to put that in the ponytail, and I'm about to show you how to create your rows. Now, the size all depends on what you want as far as how you want it to look. You can do small, which I would recommend being at least 7 rows, 6 rows. I'm doing medium, so there will be 5 rows, and I'm just showing you how I part. I usually part from the top of her ear or where her hairline meets, and I go across, and it's 2 rows underneath, and then it will be 3 at the top. I hope this makes sense, but you will see me create these rows, starting with this back portion, which is the first row. And I'm just doing it in half to really make sure that I am getting it even on both sides. And making sure that it is nice and straight. I am using my rat tail comb. This rat tail comb has a edge brush to it as well. It's not the traditional rat tail comb. It's more of a different one, but now you see I've separated those 2 rows. I am going to braid this row because I am not starting with this row. That back row that you see that is not braided or clipped off will be the first row that I start with. And then I'm going to create the rows at the top. You don't have to do this, but this is a good way to just make sure that you are mapping out the style evenly. I typically don't do this, but it was faster for me just going through and cleaning up the parts with the braiding gel. So I was like, why not? Plus, I knew some of you guys wanted to know how I made my rows. Of course, I'm not going to make them super straight. I'm not adding a lot of product, but you see I'm looking at the width of the braid. You see me just pull them all apart, like pulled them to one side to make sure that each row had an even amount as far as the width. I'm not going to be using any braiding gel, or at least from my knowledge, I don't remember using it. If I did, I used a very minimum amount of braiding gel to make these parts. I really don't like to apply the braiding gel until I am on the part and I'm actually creating the braid. And that's because I don't want a lot of product build up. When you add too much product, it makes it very sticky sometimes, and it just can put a lot of build up on your client's hair, and I don't want to do that. Of course, I'm using product, but I'm not trying to use a whole jar. I want to make sure, especially with the price of the braiding gel. The price of the braiding gel that I use is not cheap, but it is worth it. But you want to make sure you're using the braiding gel when it counts, not just to do little minor things like pre-parting. I mean, you can do it when you're pre-parting, but if you have to reapply it, I would suggest just clipping it off and then apply it when you're in that area of braiding. That's just my advice. But you see, I'm just showing you guys how I just part. And I'm just parting it. I'm doing the last row at the top. And of course, again, I am going to go over these as I start getting these rows out the way of just braiding them in the knotless braid. But you can see that this pre-parting can really be useful, especially if you're a beginner braider. I would suggest doing this, and then you can use the rows at the top part, or I would say where I am now, to kind of guide you in the front if you were doing like a full head of knotless. But since I'm not, this is perfect for just even Fulani. And you see I just counted the rows as 5. Now you see I'm adding product. And this is to help me clean up the parts, make sure that they're nice, clean, and straight. I want it to be as nice as possible. I like clean parts. I'm more perfectionist in that way. And you see I'm clipping it. I'm unclipping the top because I don't want to be pulling and separating while it's in a clip that can cause breakage. And that is why I am doing it this way. But you see, I'm using the precision part of this rat tail comb. And I know you probably thinking, oh my God, she got another rat tail comb. Yes, I do. I like this type of rat tail comb because, again, it has this top part that I'm using to clean up the part, the precision area, and precision section of the comb, and I just love it. And you see, I'm just creating my braided squares, and I am doing 3 braids in this row. And then at the second row, I'll most likely do 4, and I'll just split it in half. I'm doing the brick layer. Again, if you want to see how to create the brick layer, just let me know in the comments down below. Also, everything that I am using is down in the description box below as well. You can order all these things from my Amazon storefront. And now you see me adding and braiding hair. What you guys do not see is that I have hair of color 2 and 4 prepped to the side on my braiding rack. I feed in small pieces. She has a thick grade of hair. Again, I am doing medium. So of course, because her hair is thick, I don't have to add as much to build the braid because, again, her hair is thick. But it all depends on the density of your client. I just stress that so much because some people think that you should count the amount of extensions you put in the hair when it's really about the density of your client's hair. And this is why sometimes knotless braids can have a bad reputation. I also want to say that I'm braiding basically to her mid back because, again, I am doing Bantu knots, and you want to go past the part that you plan on having it as far as what you want the length to be for the hairstyle. So I'm going a little bit further than where I want her braids to actually fall once I do the Bantu knots. But again, you want to feed in small pieces. When you're feeding in thick pieces to very thin or fine hair, you are breaking it off. You don't want to make the braids too heavy. Gravity does pull down. So you want to feed in hair based off your client's thickness, fullness of their hair. Rather it's fine, rather it's thick. You should know, or at least think about, if I put this thick piece in, is it going to weigh it down at the root on some fine hair? So that's what I tend to think about when I'm doing my client's hair. And yes, I do feed in the hair right away because I feel like it gives it a nice support. It creates a great foundation for the weight of whatever desire I do decide as far as medium or small. But I feel like it makes it stronger, especially when it grows out. I do want to say that you only want to keep this hairstyle in for 3 to 4 weeks. And I know some of you are like, no, I want my hairstyle to last for 2 months. No, you want to make sure you can get to your scalp, clean your scalp, take this extension hair out. You know, it's just the weight of the braid after so long. You want to remove. You just want to remove. And I stress that so much about all my hairstyles. These are protective styles. If you have them in for too long, it is no longer a protective style. Now it's going to be breaking your hair off. And that's how I think about it. But you see, I've completed all of the rows except this one. And I'm just showing you again how I do the knotless braid. I'm parting it off, cleaning up my parts again with my braiding gel. And you want to make sure you have clips. If you don't have anything when you're braiding, make sure you have a good comb and some clips because that will really help you with just removing hair out of your way. And again, you see how I just feed it in. I do 3 pillars. As I turn one, then I feed it in. I hope that all makes sense. If you want a close-up of how I do my knotless braid, just let me know in the comments. I do have a knotless box braid tutorial that you guys should check out. But again, if you want to see how I do it in slow-mo, maybe I'll create some type of reel or short to get out there to you. And yeah, I'm just pretty much braiding it all the way down. And like I said, this hairstyle will last 3 weeks with good maintenance and care. Now, we going deep sea diving. It's the summertime. And when I say deep sea diving, I mean we're going to the pool a lot. So her hair will probably last 3 weeks exactly, just because over time. And this is my daughter. She don't tie it. When you have a mama that's in your head, she don't be tying her hair down the way that she should. But if you are paying for someone to do this hairstyle, or you are doing this hairstyle and you want to know how long it's going to last, it can last 3 to 4 weeks, as long as you're not deep sea diving like us and wearing a protective hair wear like a do-rag at night to lay these down. I do not recommend using a bonnet, because bonnets cause especially when it's boho like these are going to be, it causes it to rub. If you want to see how I usually protect our hair, as far as my daughter and I have a video that I'll put up in here or in the description showing how we do nighttime routine. But yes, and then you want to make sure you wear a shower cap as well. So a braided do-rag to sleep and a shower cap when you shower or bathe. If you do plan on swimming, and of course after you get out of any type of water such as chlorine or even beach or lake, you want to make sure that you wash your hair. And when I mean wash, I mean put shampoo on the parts and just wash, and then go over it with a leave-in, and you want it to air dry, especially if it is late at night, or you want to take a blow dryer, put it on a nice temperature that's not too hot, and you can dry it. But it'll take a process, or a hooded dryer. But I would recommend do not tie it down, because it will smell like mildew. If you do, let's say for instance you went in the morning, then you most likely have enough time to dry all the way through to the night, and then you can wear your scarf at night. But if you are going in the evening swimming and then you have to wash it, you need it to air dry. Air dry, air dry, air dry. You can get you a silk pillowcase, and that can help with as far as frizziness around that time. I also want to say that when you do have the Bantu knot ends, when you go swimming, it does take a little bit longer to dry. Trust me, I have Bantu knot ends, and when I say it took a little bit longer as far as the drying process with braids, but I'm okay with it. It kept me cool, especially on these hot days. But I do want to let you know, if you decide to swim, be prepared for it to take a little bit longer on your braids that have Bantu knots, if you plan on adding Bantu knots. Now I am at the front, and on each side I'm going to be doing 3 braids. It's not identical to the T, but this is the most identical part as far as the feed-in cornrow braids. It's 3 on each side. And I also want to say that the crisscross that I'm going to do right above it, those 2 parts are probably, outside of the bang, the most identical part as far as this hairstyle. But you can do whatever design you want to do for this hairstyle. You do not have to follow this, but if you are, this is how I did it. But you can put a heart at the side. You could do straight back. You could do them at an angle. It's really up to you on how you want the Fulani design to be. But for this hairstyle, it is 3 braids going to each side, falling on the ear. And you see me just feeding it in as I go. Because her hair is thinner, I fed it in earlier. It's a little bit thinner around the perimeter, which is normal for most people. And I don't want to say thin, like it's just not as thick as the other parts of her hair. As you guys know, most of the time it's not super thick around your perimeter. So I do add in here a lot more, but again, you always want to add in small pieces and build up your braid. And when I say build up your braid, I mean build it up to the size of the other braids. You don't want to have one small braid here and then one super skinny braid there, one big fat braid. So you want to make sure when you're building up the braid, you are paying attention to the width of the other braids that you have already put into your client's head. You want to make sure they're all around the same size. Again, I am using Expressions hair. And I also want to say, you want to make sure as you're feeding it in, you're paying attention to where the length falls. You don't want it going all different lengths. So you want to make sure that you're feeding in small pieces around the same time so they can end up being all the same length. I am using, I believe, 42-inch Expressions hair. Again, I didn't want to use 52 because that's too long, but I'm using 42. If you are finding value in this content and is enjoying this tutorial, please hit that subscribe and that notification bell so you know when I'm posting. I'm trying to post every week to have content out there for you guys. So yeah, and I try to post shorts or little clips or behind the scenes daily, if not every other day. So go check those out. I have a ton of Fulani hairstyles, braided hairstyles, protective styles all throughout my channel. So you want to go check that out. I do have a playlist for all the Fulani braids that I have done tutorials on, so go check that out. I like this hairstyle in particular because it is so different than the average Fulani, Boho Fulani. I'm loving the length as far as bob length, and I'm also loving the Bantu knot ends. I just think it's such a vibe, super cute. And I'm loving the bob specifically because of the summer heat. I just feel like having long braids can make the summer just seem super duper exhausting. But I feel like when it's bob length, it's super cute. But bob isn't for everybody. So you want to make sure that you look good with the bob. If you're trying to rock a bob, you know, go get you a little bob wig or something, or put the hair up to your face and make it into the desired length of the bob that you want. And bob ratio, as far as length ratio, can all be different. As far as like, some people like a bob that's hitting right at their chin. Some people like it right at their shoulder. Some like it just a little teeny bit past their shoulder. I particularly did the Bantu knots for her because she cannot do a bob when it comes to just natural Fulani because her hair is longer than what bob length is. So Bantu knots is the perfect alternative for the long hair girlies who really want to wear a bob but just can't because they don't want to cut their hair or you know, cut the braids. If you cut the braids, you're cutting your hair if your hair is going through the braids. So Bantu knots is the way to go. And I did just complete that that bang, and I do want to say that the bang is slightly smaller, which I'm okay with, especially with that little bit piece of hair. I was a little leery about adding the bang, but she really wanted the bang. And I did get this from an inspiration pic that I will post in here right now. And if you are wondering why I was leery about the bang, it's because, like I said, we swim a lot, and there is not a whole lot of hair that's holding in that braid. So I was a little leery about that. But now I am creating the crisscross braid, which you need to have two different parts that you see. I already split it for the cornrow. And then you want to part kind of like in a T. And the reason why you want to part in a T is because you're going to cross where that T kind of meets that center. So you can see I clipped off the pieces that I'm not about to braid right now, and I'm detangling. Now I'm about to begin the braid, and I'm just taking my time. You want to make sure that you're not tight. You want to ask your client if it's too tight. And I am just cornrowing it in. Now I'm going to feed in. Once I get a little bit past, like I want to say like a good half an inch, I start to feed in the hair. And I feed in like one or two pieces. And then once I'm getting closer to being off the scalp, I'm going to add in more hair. And you see I just add that rat tail comb and pull it against me like the way that I was braiding, just to make it looser. And then I'm just adding in, I'm building the braid because, again, I'm about to be off of the scalp area, and it's going to be just me braiding it all the way down. So I'm building the braid into the same size as all the other braids in the back and that are to the side. And that is what I am going to be doing. I'm not going to show you guys me braiding it all the way down for every braid. Again, I do have a lot of videos on my channel demonstrating how I feed in hair all the way to the end. But yeah, and now I'm doing the other section of the crisscross right here. I do want to say that if you are taking this down, this will be the first braid you take down on a crisscross braid, not the one that I just did, because you're going to find yourself stuck, because this braid is going to go across and on top of the other braid that I just braided. And this is how you do a crisscross braid. A lot of people think crisscross braids are difficult, and they're really not. You just have to take your time. Don't rush, but it's very easy. You're just following what you parted. And that's pretty much how you do any design, except I would say a star and a heart can sometimes be challenging depending on where your client wants the hair and depending on how artistic you are. But if you want just a simple design, crisscross is very easy to do. And that is pretty much. So this section right here, the crisscross and the braids going down, is going to be identical on the other side. I'm not going to show you guys. Oh, and the bang. The crisscross, and these braids going down to the side are identical to the other side. But this middle part where I'm at now is where it is different. They call this the Tetris design because it looked like Tetris shapes, but in a person's head. I hope that makes sense. And yeah, so I'm gonna do that, and I'm trying to get the best angle that I can get for you guys. But I basically just did like a L. I did do the braids on the other side already off camera. Again, you could do whatever design you desire, but I am doing this Tetris look. And right now I'm just basically doing a big box outline, and I'm just parting it and cleaning up the parts with the braiding gel. Again, everything that I'm using is my favorite staple products. You will see this in multiple videos. I don't really switch it up much unless it is something maybe like some Locs or a natural hairstyle. But these same products, except the braiding hair, of course, if I'm doing a natural hairstyle, is all of the products that I use in almost every video. So make sure you go check that out. And I like getting this pure neat braid that I get because, one, I just order it and it come right to my house. And I don't have to worry about rushing to the store. And I just really stock up on it. And yeah, but now you see I am braiding. And I just basically parted it off. But if you could tell on the inspiration picture, the design is where it's like very small braid here, and then the other braid across will be a little bit longer, and then it curves. But once you see the finished product, you'll understand what I mean when I say Tetris design. At this point, I just want you guys to just watch how I do this Tetris design. It's really much better. It's just better for you guys to see me do it. I'm gonna just say that. It's just better for y'all to see me do it, but stay tuned because I'm going to show you guys how I did the Bantu knots and the boho curls and the finishing touches to just make this hairstyle come alive. And I will pop back in here and talk to you guys on how I do those things, but just continue to watch. Now that the braiding is all out the way, now I am just oiling my client's hair while my kettle is getting hot because I am going to dip the ends. And I'm emphasizing ends of the braids because you do not, if your client hair is long, you do not want to go all the way up the braid with the boiling hot water. I am going to where I know her hair is not in the braid. But right now, I am just oiling her scalp while I wait for that kettle to be ready. I do this with all of my clients, and they love it because they don't have to think about like oiling their scalp for a while. And you see I put a rubber band where I want to stop with the boiling hot water. So yeah. And I'm just basically just dipping the very ends. I just want it to be nice and straight. And now I'm doing the Bantu knot ends, which is very easy. You just fold it upward and just wrap upward and downward until you get it all the way where you need it to be. Then you just secure it with a rubber band. Some people like to secure it with nail glue. I do not like to do that because you could possibly glue your client's hair through the braid, and I'm just not in the business of damaging my client's hair. Rubber bands are fine. Again, since we are swimming, I am securing each one of these braids with 2 rubber bands because I don't want them to pop at all while she is wearing this hairstyle. And now you guys can see why I had the braids going past the length that I desire for the bob. I did ask her how long does she want her bob, and she said a little bit past her shoulder. And I just thought it was super cute. And I just wrapped. Again, I do have a slow motion video of me doing this. I do want to say that when you do bend the hair, I hope you guys are paying attention that I am bending where it meets with the other ones, like so, like this. You want to make sure that your client head is looking straight forward. They're not like laying down or anything like that. You want to make sure they're looking directly forward at whatever you have there to look at, and that they're sitting up straight so that these are as even as you can possibly get them as far as the length of the bob. So if you have them with their head not straight or tilted, look out for doing some redos, trying to make sure that all these Bantu knot ends are all as close to even as far as lengthwise in general. And you're going to see me constantly keep putting it up against the other ones. And yeah, and I'm just wrapping around. I do start off upward and then wrap downward. And then I secure with the rubber band. Once I'm done, I clean up any flyaways from the hair by just simply trimming them off. And I'm just trimming them just to show you guys, like, it's just a little bit. Now I'm adding in the boho hair. I like to do this last because it'll be out of my way. And I have a ton of videos of that you can go and check out. These are synthetic pieces, and that was why I could crochet them in. If it's human, you have to braid it in. But I'm going over mousse just to make sure that it defines the curls. Then I'm cutting the curls to the even length of where it stands, oil sheening it. And yeah, I'm just making sure it's nice and moisturized. Here's the finished product. Y'all let me know in the comments below if you like this hairstyle. I love this hairstyle. It is super cute. My daughter was a little hesitant, but she was like, we gonna have to bring this one back, Mom. So here's a playlist of all my other tutorials. Peace and hair grease.